Welcome guys, Cody Mac here at RCD RV with Tech Devotions. Today we're going to be covering Swhentec slide rooms. It's one of the most common slide room mechanisms that you'll see out on the road. This is part of the Swhentec slide here, is this gear track. Today we're going to be covering some of the operations of the Swhentec to make sure that it's functioning properly, and then what to do when you get stuck out on the road if your Swhentec slide room has troubles going in or out. There's a couple of key components to the Swhentec slide room. Basically, you have the slide rack, which is these gear tracks that you see. Now these gear tracks here on the bottom and the top are connected with a post. There's a motor in the corners of the slide room that when you put power to them, it turns the tracks in and out. That's how your slide room runs in and out. It's a good system as long as it's used properly. Swhentecs get a negative connotation out there, but like I said, I did tech work for about 6 years, and I've never had issues with them if they're used and functioning properly. Some of the big things with Swhentec slide rooms is you want to have full battery voltage when you're running these slide rooms. It's very, very important. These slide rooms run off of communication wires and electronic controllers. If those electronic controllers sense low battery voltage, they won't function properly. And that's where a lot of customers get issues with these. You'll hear the slide rooms running out in or out uneven, things like that. We're going to cover how to work through some of that today. But we'll cover a couple of maintenance tips. You never want to grease this with wet lubricant. You don't want to use WD-40 or anything as such on this. It's just going to gum up the track and cause you a bunch of issues. Really, you don't have to use any kind of lubricant, but if you insist on doing so, use just a dry lubricant. Spray silicone is going to be your best friend. Just load up the gear track there. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's not necessarily required. So we'll head on inside and we'll cover some of the components and what to do if your slide room's stuck in or out, and I'll show you a couple of the components of the slide as well. Alright guys, come on in. We're going to show you the operation of the Swhentec slide room. We are plugged into shore power currently, so we have 30 amp service, which is going to be charging our battery. So we're good to run this Swhentec slide room in and out. The biggest thing that you'll hear people complain about while they're on the road is my slide's running crooked or uneven. Really all that is your slide room just needs retimed. They put a motor in each of these corners of the slide room, and that's what turns the gear tracks to run the slide room in and out. Now when those motors, they communicate with each other through a controller. When you have low battery voltage, that controller gets wonky, and then that's when your slide room starts going crooked. I'm going to teach you how to retime your slide on the Swhentecs. Because 9 times out of 10, as long as you have good battery voltage, that's going to fix your issue. So what you do when you retime the slide room, say you're stuck all the way out how it is right now, and you try and run it in, and your slide starts to run crooked, what you do is you're going to want to inch that slide room until it's ran all the way out. When you get it all the way out, you push and hold the button. I'll show you, and you'll be able to hear the motors amp out. Here you have your slide room switch. So we're going to run it in just a little bit, and then we're going to run it back out. Now I hold that switch until the slide room quits making noise. Once you hold that switch, you'll hear both of the motors amp out. That's telling you the slide room's all the way out. Both of the motors are saying, I'm out to the furthest point I can go, and to kill power to it. If you run that switch before those motors amp out, then that's when you start causing timing issues with your slide room. With this Swhentec slide mechanism, you want to run your slide room all the way in or all the way out. You don't want to stop halfway. That's just going to cause you issues. But like I said, battery voltage is really key with this, guys. So I'm going to run it all the way in, and then I'll show you how to retime it. Alright guys, the slide room's all the way in now. I'm going to teach you how to retime it. Say your slide room's stuck in, and when you try and run it out, it starts running crooked. Here's what you do. You're going to bump your slide room out about 6 inches. You can really guess that at this. It doesn't have to be exactly 6 inches. You're going to run it out there and then run it and hold the button until it runs all the way in. Once those motors amp out, that's telling you that the motors are all the way in, that they've communicated with the controller, the slide room's in. You're going to repeat that process about 4 or 5 times. Just running it out 6 inches, run it back in until both of the motors amp out. That's going to tell the controller that that's how the slide room runs. It's going to communicate with both of the motors to tell them how fast to turn the slide. And that's how you retime your slide room. It's the same process for if your slide room's stuck out. You run it in 6 inches and then run it all the way back out. You repeat that process 5 or 6 times. By the end, you should be good to run your slide room all the way in and all the way back out. Some of the issues that you'll see is if that doesn't work, really the Swhentec slide room is made up of 3 key components. You have your motors, you have your wiring harnesses, and you have your controllers. So really any of those 3 things could go bad in the Swhentec slide room. They're very easy to navigate and figure out exactly what component is bad. But I would still always recommend to refer you to your local RV dealership if you are running issues and you try these basic troubleshooting steps and they don't work. You might have a further issue than that. Now, I'm going to show you where a couple of the components are located for the Swhentec slide room. I'll show you where the controller is and also the motors. And if you ever get it stuck out, you can't run it in, you push the button, it's not making any noise. What you'll do and how to get your slide room ran all the way in if you're stuck out on the road. So right over here, we have the slide room controller. It's going to be in a different spot on every single coach. Here, let me get my flashlight out and I'll be able to shine it for you guys to see a little better. That black box with the white top, that is your slide room controller. That is going to be the communication box that tells the motors exactly what to do. Now on that box, there is a couple of operation suggestions. There's a manual override instruction. So basically, if your controller goes bad, or your motors lose the Hall effect so they're not communicating with each other, you can override that controller to send direct power to both your motors and override all of the communications to where it's just running the slide room in and out. What you do is there's a button on the slide room box for the controller. You'll push that button 6 times, hold it on the 7th until the light starts blinking. Once that light's blinking, it'll blink red and green really fast. That tells you that the controller's overridden and you can go ahead and run your slide room back in. It's just going to send direct power to your motors. So that's a nice feature about the Swhentec, is having that override feature. But if the controller's not your issue, you still need a way to run your slide room in. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to show you where the controller is for the slide room by running this in just a couple of inches. These slide room controllers are tucked in the very top corner of each side of the room. They're going to be behind your rubber flap seal. I'll try and peel this back to show you exactly what the motor looks like itself. So if you can see that little piece right there, that's going to be your slide room motor. Now that motor is held in by a set screw on the outside of the coach. Once you remove your set screw on the outside, it'll usually be exposed on the rubber flap seals. Typically it's just a square head screw. You take that set screw out and this is going to allow you to pop your motor out. Usually you can take a flathead screwdriver, wedge it into the bottom. Let me show you here. Wedge it in right here, and then that'll allow you to pry your motor up and out of its set place. Once that motor's free and up out of there, you can disconnect it from the harness. And then your slide room, if you do that on both sides for the motors, your slide room is going to be free. There's nothing moving in or out. So you can push your slide room all the way in from the outside. And then you just wedge a 2x4 in between the wall and the slide fascia here. at least until you can get to a safe spot, you know, off of the road, a local RV dealership, RV park that offers mobile technician service, something to where you can get to a safe spot and somebody can get you fixed up. So a couple of years ago, Swhentec's had a really bad name in the RV world. That's because of some of the issues that I just went over. They also used to make these metal gear tracks, and also the gear that turns the tracks. They used to make those out of actual metal, to where when that metal's rubbing on each other, you were getting metal flakes that'd fall off, get caught up in the gears and the gear tracks, and that would cause a lot of issues. Since then, Lippert has refined their systems, and they've started building these out of composite material instead of actual metal. That composite material has made the system a lot more robust. With that, you don't deal with the metal shavings getting caught in your gear tracks, and the issues that comes with that. All right. They use Swhentec slide rooms mostly on smaller slides. It doesn't carry a bunch of weight, but typically you'll see it on smaller travel trailers. Now you do see the occasional slide room with the double gears tracks. You'll see those on larger slide rooms, but they're starting to be filtered out of the RV industry. But there are still some manufacturers that do so. Like I said, as long as the Swhentec brand is used correctly, it's a good system. You won't have many issues with it. The nice thing is they're installed very precisely with measurements taken at each corners, and the slide runs straight in and straight out. You don't have any tilting, so it's not going to cause any extra stress on the slide box itself. But that should about cover it for Swhentec slide rooms. Here in one of our next videos, we'll cover another type of RV slide room mechanism, and we'll hope to see you guys then. This is Cody Mac with RCD RV with Motor Mike, and thanks for stopping out and going over some Swhentec slide rooms with us.